today, the good news is coming on Covovax and Corbevax getting a clearance, an anti-COVID pill. Molnupiravir has also gotten the nod, and I'm being joined by a prolific panel right here. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairman and MD, Nephron Clinics. Dr. Swati Maheshwari, Internal Medicine Specialist, Dr. Gaurav Thukral, HCI, Delhi, and Dr. Swapnil Parikh, Physician and Author. They're all joining me on this broadcast. I want to begin with Swapnil first. Dr. Parikh, you've just put out a tweet. You have hailed this particular decision as well. And you've also mentioned a little about ivermectin, favipiravir, antibiotics, zinc, and vitamin for the treatment for COVID-19, but gone ahead and hailed Molnupiravir. How is Molnupiravir going to be benefiting the fight against COVID more than any of these other drugs that have been prescribed before?
Hi, Chaiti. Essentially, all the other drugs that were mentioned on that list were entirely useless for COVID-19. And unfortunately, some of them were in official treatment guidelines. And very unfortunately, some of these were used quite extensively in India. Molnupiravir, it's an antiviral drug which, when started early in a disease course, that's within 5 days of symptom onset, it's given twice a day for 5 days, can reduce the chance of progressing to severe COVID-19. It has an efficacy of about 30% in clinical trials. Hopefully, we'll have some real-world data as well. While these drugs aren't a substitute for vaccines, vaccination is very important. It's just one more tool in our arsenal. There will be some breakthrough infections. There will be some individuals who are unvaccinated who do get infected. And there will be individuals who are at high risk despite vaccination. And for these individuals, an antiviral therapeutic, the more antivirals, the better.
That's very interesting to note. So let me take this across to Dr. Gaurav Thukral as well. Dr. Thukral, as Swapnil mentioned, that this is going to be a very, very effective drug in the treatment of COVID-19. And you are somebody who is specializing in healthcare at home in India. And I do remember during the second wave as well, you all were running pillar to post with oxygen and, you know, taking the ICUs to people's homes as well. Do you think that frequency will come down now with this big announcement? As Dr. Swapnil said, this is a very effective drug, Molnupiravir, in the treatment for COVID, and the rest of the ones which were being prescribed do not work, according to him.
Yeah, I think I agree with Swapnil. This drug has been recommended for usage in adults who are at risk for severe disease. Already in the West, it has showed that there is 30% decrease in hospitalizations and deaths also. Yeah. And very interestingly, the whole mechanism of this drug is that it stops the replication of the viral by creating an error in the viral gene. And this is called a catastrophe error. So that means that the the COVID-19 itself will stop replicating, and hence this will reduce the infection. And as one of my co-panelists mentioned, this all happens in the first 5 days, and the trials have shown that the viral load has gone significantly down on Molnupiravir.
That's very interesting observation. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, I'd like to bring you in. Does this work on children as well? And are you also awaiting a nod in the treatment of children for this particular drug? If you could clarify that.
Hi, good day to everyone. So, like the previous panelists have mentioned, this actually destroys the viral replication. And it destroys it at a level which we call as RDRP. That means the virus itself undergoes mutations in which it cannot replicate and it cannot come into the cell as cell entry. The enzymes and the amino acids which are changed are basically cysteine and uridine. Now, most of the trials which have been done internationally have been on adults. The largest trial have been on about 1,400 patients, in which they've shown a 50% reduction in hospitalizations and death. There is a UK trial in which it has shown a 30% reduction, decrease in viral load, decrease in viremia, and clearance. Viral clearance also has been almost 50% up. But I think the efficacy of this has been good in terms of the safety profile, and tolerance level has been very good. I'm quite sure that the trials will now extend on to the lower age groups, beginning from 12 to 18 and then subsequently lower. They have done trials of 200 milligrams a day, 400 a day, and 800 a day. And it's given twice a day for 5 days. Early on, it can be used from mild, moderate, mainly, occasionally severe, but on OPD basis. Cost will be one issue in the Indian scenario, availability and timing of the drug. Very often the patients don't actually realize to get the test done. They consider it as a seasonal or a viral kind of fever, and they don't get the test done. So I think early diagnosis and institution of the treatment will be the key. But the success of this is because it's on OPD basis, given early, 50% reduction in hospitalization and death, quick viral clearance, which is a big benefit.
That is very, very welcoming to hear. And Dr. Swati Maheshwari, I just want to play devil's advocate here slightly. Right when, if I take you back to when the coronavirus pandemic broke out and doctors were prescribing plasma treatment, because of course at that point of time nobody knew anything better about the nature of this virus as well. Then came several other drugs, then came certain different lines of treatment. Then we went back and said, okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. There was a lot of trial and error that was done in initial phases as well. Then came ivermectin. Is Molnupiravir headed for the same fate, or do you think it's tried, tested, experimented and here to stay as an antiviral drug for treatment of COVID?
See, Jayati, initially when we were dealing with COVID virus, we didn't know too much about the virus and a lot of speculations were going on and a lot of hit and trial methods were being tried. But now 2 years down the line, we definitely know much better about the virus. And therefore, drugs like Molnupiravir that, come out with extensive studies actually show a lot of ray of light and hope to the medical professionals for that matter. Because, see, we need to strengthen the armamentarium that is available to our medical doctors. And this is one very effective way, because when studies show that the results are effective and when it is showing the results that we had actually wanted from these drugs, then definitely you would like to catch on to these drugs and use them. As of now, the results are very good and we are very hopeful about the vaccine, about the drug that we're talking about. But yes, over the line, we are not very sure, because see, there are a lot of new variants that are coming in, and how these variants will be tackled by these vaccines, these drugs, is not very clear right now. But yes, let's go with what we have right now and the studies that we have, so that we can treat our patients better and at least cut down on the hospitalization and the complications that happen in these patients in a more effective way that we have available to us right now. So Paxlovid, Molnupiravir, all these drugs are something that we have to kind of clinch on to, so that we can prevent these complications in our patients. And as we go forward, I'm sure there'll be more such drugs that would be in the pipeline and which are being kind of subjected to a lot of tests right now. And so hopefully we'll be having more such drugs
Dr.
as time
Swapnil
goes.
Parekh, if you could shed some light on Molnupiravir and its effectiveness on the Omicron variant of COVID-19, because that's the biggest question on everyone's mind with these Omicron cases looming large in the country. How effective is Molnupiravir going to be effective against this particular variant?
So just some background information about this drug. Interestingly enough, it's named after Thor's hammer. So that's where the name comes from, Molnupiravir. Thor, the character from Marvel's Avengers. So this drug works as it targets, as Dr. Bagai said, it targets RDRP. And fortunately, in the Omicron variant, there aren't too many mutations in RDRP. So you have to think of RDRP as a scanner printer. So it scans the virus's genome and then it prints out copies of that genome. So imagine like one string, and RDRP scans that string and prints out many copies of that string. What Molnupiravir does is it interferes with this process. So instead of the right kind of string coming out, there are small errors that come out in the string that make it defective. And currently, we believe that this will be effective, a similar level of efficacy against Omicron or other variants that may emerge. However, it's very important to point out that the clinical trials were conducted before the Omicron variant was dominant in these countries, or before it was even discovered.
Okay.
So we don't really have clinical data, but we don't have trial data, but based on what we know of the virus, it should have a similar level of efficacy. That's about 30% efficacy in reducing severe disease.
Interesting to note. Add that with the fact that people are now vaccinated, many are double vaccinated, many are headed for their booster shots as well. And Dr. Gaurav Tukral, the other big announcement that has come now is on Covovax and Corbevax getting the emergency use authorization. Are you welcoming this particular move, and how soon do you think we should start? We're talking about starting booster doses in Jan, but are you convinced with the fact that we're early, we're late, we're on time with our booster shots? What's your take?
So my take on that, Chaiti, is that more the merrier. As everybody has pointed, more things we have ourselves to protect from the virus. I think it makes more and more sense to have these new kinds of vaccines, because as the virus is mutating and doing new things for its survival, the same we'll also have to do. So Carbovax, which is a RBD protein subunit vaccine, or a Covovax, which is the first nanoparticle vaccine, these all can be used as booster shots also. And as the supplies won't be constrained with a few manufacturers, this also would lead to, I would say, vaccine equity across the globe also. So more the merrier. And as the virus is changing, I think we'll also have to be very agile with all these vaccines and keep on researching and keep on making new things. So that's my take on booster shots and these vaccines.
Right. Before I go to Dr. Bagai and Dr. Maheshwari as well, Swapnil, you have been vocal about how the gap needs to be dropped between dose 1 and 2 to 8 weeks, the dose 2 and 3 to 12 to 16 weeks. You've been propagating giving booster to 60 plus without medical certificate and give booster to those below 60 with high-risk medical conditions, and that can have a certificate right there. Why do you think that this gap needs to reduce somewhere?
So the first important thing is right now, we can't leave people unprotected in the Omicron wave with a single vaccine dose. So yes, there is a slight advantage in delaying the dose to 12 to 16 weeks when we have that opportunity. But right now, we're not in that opportunity. So if we want to be able to maximize our second dose coverage, we should look at dropping the gap between dose 1 and dose 2 to about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, so we can maximize second dose coverage. We need to drop the gap between dose 3 from the currently suggested 9 months. We need to drop it down to about maybe somewhere between 3 to 4 months, so we can actually maximize the number of people who get this boost. Again, there is an immunological advantage to increasing that gap, but right now we don't have the benefit of time. You know, these booster doses, they take some time to take effect. So if we actually want these booster doses, it takes about 7 days for the boost to maximize protection. So if we actually want that benefit, we need to start right away. And the population that is 9 months away, is far too small right now. So we really need to have a booster blitz. And for that, we need to move much faster. And currently, India doesn't have a supply issue. If we look at the production numbers that manufacturers are putting out, with now Covovax, with Corbevax coming online, we have a plethora of vaccine options. Vaccines are our single greatest tool in the battle against the pandemic, and we need to maximally leverage these.
So, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, going by this, would you feel that we're a little late in the day in the announcement of booster doses as well? Because when you have an Omicron threat, and while ideally you have to keep 6 months gap between your second dose of vaccination and your booster dose, this has to reduce given the fact how Swapnil mentioned that we don't have the luxury in terms of time with the Omicron cases rising. Would you also suggest minimizing this particular gap?
Yeah, so my first take is better late than never.
Yeah.
Given the scenario that the world is 90% of the world is struggling even for the first vaccine. The rich countries per every 100 population have given 164 vaccines, and the poorer countries have only done 8 per 100 population. So the gap is huge. But having said that, I think an ideal gap between the second and the third dose should not be more than 5 or 6 months. There have been stratified studies which have shown breakthrough infections which are age and means time dependent after the second vaccine. So the maximum breakthrough infections happen after the second dose between the 70th and the 80th day. That's 50% of them. And as the number of days go on, and once you reach a figure of approximately 6 months and beyond, the figure doubles. So it's from 1.4 times more, it reaches 2.4 times more. So obviously, an ideal time scenario would be between 5 and 6 months after the second, no longer than that. At the moment, they've kept it between 8 and 9 months. But there is apart from a wider section of people who've received it, we should also look at a mix and match between different platforms, scientific platforms. There is sufficient international data on it. But very briefly, as a summary point to give you, 2 vaccines, immunity decreases after the 5th month anywhere between 30 folds to 180 folds. If you give a third vaccine at between the 5th and the 6th month after the second vaccine, the immunity bounces upwards of 200 times more. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to restore the memory of the memory cells, the
Yes.
long-term cells. We are stimulating a center known as the germ cell,
Okay.
which produces the memory cells, and therefore it is critically important at this stage.
Dr. Swati Maheshwari, the all-important question here. Covishield has been approved in India. Covaxin has been approved in India. Clearance has come for Covovax and Corbevax as well. How effective are all of these against Omicron, or does India need to wait for maybe a Pfizer or Moderna, which is touted globally by many experts to be more effective against Omicron? What's your take?
Absolutely, that's a very, very pertinent point that you've put across, Chetty, because see, once where we say that we are approving Corbevax, we are approving Covovax and all these vaccines that were in the pipeline and which were doing their trials since last 1 year, we really need to see whether how effective these vaccines are with the new variants that are coming up, whether these vaccines need to tweak their, the design, the whole vaccine for that matter, because, moving forward, there are two things very sure that we would be tackling with more variants of COVID. So we need to find vaccines which are more efficacious against these variants. Secondly, mix and match of booster dose would be way forward, because that is what most of the data that is pooling in from international centers also is showing, that eventually moving forward, it would be mix and match of the booster doses. So we need to have more and more effective vaccines which can tackle the variants better, because, dealing with the vaccines which are effective only against the original COVID is not going to help us now. So we really need to adapt these vaccines with the changing times and the changing variants. And I think, therefore, these vaccine manufacturers should actually go back and do the studies as well with the variants and come out with results. Because, see, Pfizer and Moderna, they are very quick and they're on to their toes, and they quickly release the data as to how their vaccine are working with the variants. But coming to India, our studies are a bit, delayed in that sense, and therefore we don't get these answers on time, which actually help these policymakers to decide as to which way, is good for us. So it's good if the Indian companies and the Indian manufacturers also kind of do these studies at a fast pace, so that we can understand and, the government can deliver much better than what is, required at this point of time. Especially also, I would like to put a word of caution. When you bring in drugs like Molnupiravir and the other drugs, the monoclonal antibodies and all, then the government should clearly indicate the indications and the contraindications that are associated with the drugs. Because like we see with Molnupiravir, there is bone growth, interference in children, and also it is contraindicated in pregnant women. So all these things should be actually clearly spelled out, so that like it happened with steroid, it was used for each and everyone. It should not happen here in India.
Yes.
The drugs should not be misused. Everybody should not think that this is a drug that we can take and we will not go to the hospital.
Hold on to that thought. That's
like
a very, very important point, and I want to take that across with Swapnil in just about a bit. But before that, I want to bring in Gaurav Thukral. It is a very welcome move that Covovax, Corbevax, Covishield, Covaxin, these 4 vaccines are now available in India. It's fantastic for the country. All of you are unanimously saying that while the government is also chest thumping about the clearance coming in for Covovax and Corbevax, should they not go ahead and make Pfizer and Moderna available in India too?
Well, we already have so many homegrown and homemade vaccines that I'm not very sure that we really need a Pfizer and Moderna. Having said that, I think it should be a choice with the citizens of India also, that if they want to get access to those vaccines, and these vaccines have been already proven efficacious across the globe, and as Dr. Swati said, they are also coming up with studies on the latest variants. I don't see any harm that by these vaccines should not be allowed in India.
Dr. Swapnil, Swati Maheshwari had a very interesting point to note. If you remember, there was a non-judicious use of steroids in the second wave, and that led to a lot of these black fungus cases, mucormycosis cases in our country. And then, of course, they spelled out the protocol in administering these steroids for the treatment of COVID. Similarly, as far as Molnupiravir is concerned, have there been any concerns in terms of the side effects or how and the exact protocol of how it should be administered?
There are some theoretical concerns regarding Molnupiravir. I think it's best that we wait for scientists to figure out what these concerns are before creating panic and concern about a drug that could potentially be life-saving. So there are some concerns, as with anything in life. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're investing money or meeting a lawyer, there are theoretical concerns. The expert panels are reviewing that. There are ongoing scientific studies to determine those concerns. You know, even before COVID-19, steroids have been abused in this country. Antibiotics have been abused in this country. This isn't specific. This isn't specific to a particular class of drugs. There are systems that need to be put into place to ensure that, and clinical guidelines to ensure that individuals who are prescribing these drugs use them in the right way and in the right kind of patients so that we maximize their benefit. But at the end of the day, we should not limit access just because we are worried that they will be misused. Yes, we do need systems in place to make sure that to limit misuse. Just an additional point,
Yeah.
you're talking about Pfizer, Moderna, and other vaccines.
Yeah.
It would be great if we get access to these, but I think right now, with Novavax and Corbevax coming online, we're going to have a significant number of new vaccines coming up in the pipeline. I think right now, one of the things we should start focusing on is the second generation of vaccines. So we should be focusing on pan-coronavirus vaccines that can target a whole bunch of different variants.
Sure.
And we should be focusing on nasal vaccines, live attenuated and other kinds of nasal vaccines.
All right, Dr. Parekh, you've spelled out the need of the hour quite precisely. Dr. Maheshwari, I see your hand up. You want to make a quick point before we wind up?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. See, what I intended to say was that the government should be very clear in their guidelines because, a lot of times what happens is, and what we have seen across in the second wave also, people started hoarding these medicines and also, a lot of them started taking them by themselves. They were taking it as prophylactic and they were using it, misusing it completely. So we really need to be clear with the guidelines as to which section of the society and which section of the people who are suffering from the disease would benefit from the medicines so that, there's not so much of misuse that happens with these medicines and then the entire name of the medicine also goes down the line.
Oh, yes.
So actually the government has to be very clear about all these things. And secondly, when you talk about Pfizer and Moderna, I really feel that we have good vaccines here in India. We really don't need Pfizer and Moderna right now. But the only thing is that the new vaccines that are coming up, like Corbevax and Covovax, they are based on spike protein, and that is the most worrisome area where most of the mutations have happened. So they really need to revisit their vaccine and see if these are working on the variants also, because that is what our major concern is right now. So going forward, we would not like to take vaccine which is working only on the original COVID virus. We would like to take a vaccine which is working on variants as well.
For now, something is better than nothing. And of course, all of you unanimously are welcoming Covovax and Corbevax approval outside of the fact that you already have Covaxin and Covishield. But having said that, as you all have mentioned, that research needs to keep going on and we need to find more vaccines that really help us in other evolving mutations of COVID. With that, I thank you very much, Dr. Swapnil Parekh, Dr. Maheshwari, Dr. Bagai and Dr. Gaurav Thakral for taking the time out and joining us on this special broadcast. Thank you, viewers. I hope all your FAQs have been answered by these doctors in the back of the news development that is coming.